It's 11 a.m. on an ordinary Tuesday, and you are sitting in the waiting room of a private bank. The floor is polished gray marble, smooth enough that you can almost see your own reflection in it. Next to you sits a man in a gray t-shirt washed one too many times, jeans worn thin at the knees, sneakers that lost their original color years ago. Nobody pays him any attention. The receptionist glances at him sideways, the specific look of someone who thinks he's wandered into the wrong building. When his name is finally called, he stands up slowly, unhurried, and walks toward the wealth manager's office. That man has $14 million in assets managed by that bank. You know this because seconds later, his name updates on the reception screen alongside the number attached to his account. And in that instant, you understand something most people spend their entire lives never grasping. Real money almost never looks like anything. What you actually see, walking down any street in any city, is something else entirely. Over the next minutes, you're going to understand why the people who have the most money are usually the ones who show it the least, and why that isn't cheapness or eccentricity or an accident. It's a strategy, one that protects money, grows it, and keeps it from becoming a target. Act 1. The parking lot. It's Saturday night, and you are in the parking lot of an expensive restaurant. A sports car roars in and takes up 2 spaces because the driver doesn't want anyone scratching the paint. 2 people step out, dressed head to toe in labels everyone in the lot can identify from 30 feet away. Every head turns. Every conversation pauses for a beat to notice. That couple just spent, on the car and the clothes combined, more than most people in this parking lot save in 5 years. What almost nobody asks is the only question that actually matters. How much do they owe? How much credit card debt is riding alongside that car payment? How many months behind are they? How much is actually left in the account after tonight's dinner clears? This is the central confusion the rest of this video is going to take apart. We live inside a culture that mistakes spending for having, that mistakes looking successful for actually possessing something. Act 2. Where this came from. This culture of showing off didn't appear out of nowhere. For most of human history, displaying wealth was rational. In societies where most people lived close to subsistence, a gold ring or a fine horse were reliable signals because producing them cost real labor and real resources nobody could fake. If you looked rich, you very likely were because there was no other way to project it. That signal stopped being reliable a long time ago, and almost nobody updated their instincts to match. Today, buying the appearance of wealth is easier than it has ever been in human history. 7-year car loans exist. Credit cards hand out limits far beyond what a modest salary should support. You can rent a luxury handbag, a watch, even a sports car for a single weekend, just long enough for the photo. The gap between looking rich and being rich has never been wider, and yet most people still read the old signals as though they still meant something. This creates a kind of social theater, everyone performing for an audience that, in reality, doesn't have nearly as much money as it appears to have either, and is performing right back. A closed loop of people impressing each other with money most of them do not actually have, financed by debt nobody else can see. Thomas Stanley's research on American millionaires, published decades ago, stated plainly, most millionaires did not live in mansions. They lived in middle-class houses, in ordinary neighborhoods, driving cars several years old, often bought secondhand. Meanwhile, a striking number of the people living in the mansions and driving the new cars had shockingly low net worth, sometimes negative, once the debt underneath the image was subtracted out. Act 3. Person A and Person B. Picture 2 people, both 35, both earning exactly $90,000 a year. Person A wants the world to know things are going well. A new car, $650 a month. An apartment in a nicer part of town, $400 more than they actually need. A wardrobe refreshed every season. Dinners out several nights a week, partly for pleasure, partly because the version of their life visible online needs feeding. By the end of the month, between the car, the rent premium, the clothes, and the dinners, there is almost nothing left, and whatever survives usually disappears into the next unexpected expense. Person B, on the same salary, does something almost invisible by comparison. A 6-year-old car, already paid off. A modest apartment in a safe but unremarkable neighborhood, well under what they could technically afford. Clothes that are simple and functional. No public accounting of any of it. Nobody passing them on the street would guess the number on their pay stub. Every month, a meaningful share of that paycheck routes automatically into investments before it ever has the chance to become a purchase. 10 years later, the difference between these 2 lives is not a matter of a few $1,000s. It is a difference of hundreds of thousands, entirely attributable to what person B chose never to spend on appearance, compounding quietly the entire time nobody was watching. And here is the part that should sit uncomfortably with you. For those 10 years, Person A looked like the successful one. Person B looked, at best, average. Someone without much visible ambition, by every standard a scrolling feed teaches you to apply. The financial reality was the exact opposite of the visual one. Act 4. The two rewards. Spending money to look successful triggers an almost instant reward. Someone admires the car. Someone comments on the outfit. Your brain releases a small, fast hit of validation. Visible, easy to obtain, and easy to obtain again. The problem is that the reward is fleeting. It lasts minutes, sometimes hours, and then it needs to be fed again with another purchase, another visible gesture. Investing does not offer that reward. Nobody stops you on the sidewalk to congratulate you for transferring $500 into a brokerage account this month. There is no photo. There is no applause. The reward for investing arrives later, often years later, in the form of options, freedom, and a specific kind of quiet that has no equivalent on a highlight reel. The people who accumulate real wealth are, almost without exception, the ones who learn to sit with the discomfort of skipping the immediate reward, because some part of them understood they were building something larger in a room nobody else could see into yet. Act 5. What the world does when it sees money. The moment people sense you have money, their behavior shifts, and almost never in your favor. Salespeople treat you differently, pushing the upgraded model, the extended warranty, the premium package, because they've read you as someone unlikely to question the price closely. Family and friends, rarely with any bad intention, begin to see you as a source, a loan here, a contribution there, a quiet expectation forming that you can cover certain costs because things are clearly going well. In more serious situations, visible wealth attracts legal exposure. Attorneys working on contingency weigh not only who is right in a dispute, but who can actually pay if they lose. And a flashy lifestyle can make you a more attractive target for a lawsuit that would otherwise never have been filed at all. At the most basic level, visible wealth also raises real physical risk. Theft, targeted fraud, the specific vulnerability of announcing through every outward signal that there is something here worth taking. This is why the people who manage significant fortune, the advisors, the asset protection attorneys, tell their wealthiest clients almost the exact same thing, in almost the exact same words. Live discreetly. Don't be the one everyone automatically identifies as the person with money. Let the wealth work quietly, structured correctly behind the scenes, while the daily, visible life stays calm and unremarkable. Act 6. The laundromat and the storefront. Picture the owner of a neighborhood laundromat, on the same corner for 20 years. He drives an old delivery van, dented in a few places. He wears the same 2 or 3 work outfits in rotation. Nobody in the neighborhood would guess he's a man of any particular means. And yet, after 2 decades of steady cash flow, disciplined reinvestment, and almost no unnecessary debt, that business, plus 3 storefronts he now owns and rents to other local businesses, is worth over $2 million. Down the same street, a different owner opened his shop 5 years ago. He drives a new car, financed close to the edge of what he can afford. He redid the storefront with an eye-catching design and spent aggressively on advertising from month 1, projecting, without question, the unmistakable image of instant success. The problem is that the business barely covers the car payment, the rent, and the advertising it keeps requiring every single month. One bad quarter, one dip in customers, one unexpected repair, and the entire facade is at genuine risk of collapse. The difference between these 2 men is not intelligence, and it is not effort. Both work hard. The difference is what they prioritized first, repeated for years: the appearance of success or the substance underneath it. That single choice, compounding in opposite directions, ends up determining who survives the first real crisis and who doesn't. Act 7. The 3 decisions. None of this requires a dramatic overnight change. It starts with 3 small, sustained decisions. The first, before any significant purchase, ask honestly whether you're making it for yourself or for someone else's eyes. A car that does its job and gives you genuine mechanical peace of mind is a rational decision. A car chosen mainly because it impresses the people next door is an emotional decision wearing the costume of a need. Most people spend first and save whatever happens to be left, which is usually little or nothing. People who build real wealth invest the moment income arrives and build the rest of their life around whatever remains. That single reordering, sustained month after month, is arguably the most important financial habit that exists. The third is closer to philosophy than finance. Stop measuring your progress against what you see in other people's lives, particularly online, where nearly everything on display is an edited version financed by debt or literally rented for the length of a photograph. Measure your progress instead against your own position a year ago. It is the only comparison that actually tells you anything true. None of this means denying yourself every pleasure or living in fear. It means understanding there is a real, measurable difference between enjoying your money privately and displaying it publicly. And that difference has consequences for both your finances and your safety. Act 8. The Man from the Bank. The man from the private bank did not always have $14 million. He started, like most people, with a modest salary and no particular inheritance. What he had, from young, was a clear decision about the kind of life he wanted to build, and that decision never once included impressing anyone. For over 20 years, he drove used cars, always bought outright in cash. He lived in modest homes long after his net worth had already crossed $1 million. He reinvested a large share of his income, month after month, year after year, without interruption and without exception for the months that felt like they deserved one. When friends bought new cars, he kept driving his. When colleagues moved into bigger houses, he stayed exactly where he was, comfortable, never excessive. People who knew him only on the surface likely thought of him as unremarkable, maybe even someone who hadn't accomplished much by the only standards most people know how to apply. While that outside perception stayed completely flat, his net worth grew exponentially, quietly, invisible to almost everyone, until it became the fortune that private bank now manages on his behalf. Here is the final detail worth sitting with. That man could, at any moment, buy the most expensive car on the lot, the biggest house in the neighborhood, the most exclusive clothes in any store in the city. He has more than enough to do it 10 times over without moving the needle on his net worth at all. He chooses not to, not because he can't, because he understood a long time ago that real freedom was never about being able to buy expensive things. Looking rich is a performance, and performances cost money, constantly. They require upkeep. They depend, structurally, on other people's approval, and they frequently leave the performer exactly where they started, or worse, in debt, trapped inside a spending cycle that never resolves because it was never designed to. Being free is quiet. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't require outside validation. It simply exists. The next time you feel the specific pull to buy something just so someone else notices that things are going well, stop for one full second and ask the only question that matters. Am I making this decision because it genuinely improves my life, or because I want someone else to think something specific about me? That single question, asked consistently across years, is the entire difference between becoming person A or person B. The next time someone gives your car, or your clothes, or your ordinary life a second glance because none of it announces anything, remember that the invisibility isn't a weakness. It is very likely the most reliable sign that you're building something real. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.